Welcome all of you to today's conversation on using assessments with coaching. The agenda for the conversation, we will start out with some definitions, then we'll move into reasons for using assessments. We'll talk about the process for doing that, for taking an assessment, setting that up for clients, debriefing an assessment, and then coaching with an assessment, because there's a difference between a debriefing of an assessment and coaching with an assessment. I also I have a couple of questions to put you into small groups to have conversations and respond to those questions on. And then, of course, we'll share resources with you at the end. So getting started with definitions. First off, what exactly is coaching? Well, hopefully we all know this definition. I know you're all coaches, so I still love the language of it every time. A strategic partnership. In other words, we are not at a different level from our clients. We're on the same level. We're partners. And the client is the one who's clarifying their own goals, creating their own action plans, moving past obstacles, and achieving what they choose. An assessment is something that is commonly used in coaching. Some people want them, some people don't. When it is, let's take the idea of having that assessment and just tie it into the coaching definition. We're partnering with clients. They are reviewing their assessment. They're exploring their own thoughts, identifying their key considerations, and creating their strategies moving forward. So it definitely coaching gets used with the assessment. If we move into talking about definitions of an assessment itself, it's a validated tool. And yes, we often create our own self-assessments. We get creative with clients. Hey, here's my checklist for myself, etc. The ones that you see in the marketplace are there when they're validated. It's identifying or measuring certain aspects. Personality assessments you're familiar with, there's skill assessments, there's all kinds of different options in terms of types of assessments. Administering the assessment, for the most part, is pretty simple, especially in today's world with technology. We're literally creating and providing a link to a client to take the desired assessment. Now, of course, it does go beyond that. I'm talking an example when you use the assessment dashboard that we give to all of our graduates. You log into that and you just purchase the assessment you're going to use at wholesale, and then you set it up. There's little steps so that you're creating the link that you'll send to the client to take that assessment. And then they are the ones that are doing it online. The debriefing of an assessment. If someone is certified in administering assessments, then they're qualified to do the debriefing. That is different than coaching somebody that's done an assessment. So the debriefing is interpreting the results, explaining the results. Whereas coaching is true to the coaching model. We're asking the questions. The assessment coaching, when we do that, one of the things that can be really helpful before you even move into that coaching session, preview for yourself how the report is organized. If you're talking assessments from the dashboard that we give you, please note that you have access to a ton of materials. You can log into your dashboard. There's a little password for the materials for all the different assessment tools. Copy that password and then click to go into the materials for that. Paste the password in when it asks for it. And you'll have facilitator guides, debriefing guides, training guides, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How much of that you go through will be based on your own comfort level. Some of you will go through everything, and some of you will pick the key pieces you want to go through and do it that way. Be familiar with, okay, this is the layout of the report. Then the next thing I'll get into the call with the client. I actually talk with them about how the report is laid out, what the information is, how it's organized, etc. Then I give them their copy of their assessment. Now, a note to share with all of you in that regard. when you set up the assessment, you create the link to it, it's asking you who gets the report. It commonly is sent to the client automatically. There's pros and cons to that. On the one hand, they can get that report automatically, they have it, and that may sound like a really good idea, immediate insight, etc. On the other hand, it does run the risk of going negative, because when clients get the assessment report, depending on who they are and how they function, they may look at it and go, oh gosh, I'm horrible at this, or I'm bad at this, or I'm stupid here, or whatever else it is. And it may be a negative for them. So the value of giving them the actual report when you're with them is because you can ask questions and keep it positive and proactive. And you're setting yourself up for success that way. Okay, so you log into your dashboard, you pick the assessment you're going to give, you pay the wholesale price on it. Don't tell the client how inexpensive it is for you, because you're selling them the assessment report with the coaching session. You have the report come to you. You're going to preview it ahead of time. You get into your coaching session. You're going to explain how the report is organized. Then you're going to give the client their report and invite them as they go through it, as they look at it with you sitting there with them, to share their thoughts, their ideas, and their considerations. And this is where you get to jump in and start asking questions while they're going through their assessment report. Everybody catching the difference between doing an assessment debriefing versus coaching? We're good with that?
Lisa, this is Cecil. The one question I've got is, you mentioned earlier in your definitions that the debriefing apparently requires training. You have to be trained to do the debrief, right?
Yeah, so if you are certified in that particular assessment tool, then you debrief it. And a debriefing involves interpretation of the results, explanation of that to the client. That's different than coaching a client. If you're coaching a client, no, you don't have to be certified in that assessment tool. You can be if you want to be, but you don't have to be. Anyone that graduated from any of our programs has access to dozens of different assessment tools right away at wholesale, and you can give those right away without any certification. Do you want to get certified? That's actually something I've got a slide, and we'll talk about it. It's pros and cons to getting certified. Can you do an assessment without it? Yes. The difference in the approach is, if you're not certified, do not take on interpreting the results and explaining that.
So then you have to have some skill around peddling with the client, that you don't answer questions that are of a psychological type of nature, right? Because this is a psychological assessment. So, okay,
it
gotcha.
can be. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a big difference between me telling them and explaining it to them. Okay, now I'm debriefing as somebody who's trained in that, and me coaching them, which is, okay, what are you thinking? What's showing up for you? What are you noticing? What are your ideas from this? What do you want to do with it?
Gotcha.
Pure coaching. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Glad you asked that. Love it. All right. So when you're back to the assessment coaching, you're going to ask the client, okay, you've got the assessment, you've got the report. What do you want to work on? And sometimes the way I'll ask the question is, when you take this assessment again, what do you want the results to tell you? And how do you get there? Which is the same concept as what they want to work on. Ask them what changes they want, and invite them, just like you do in coaching, to develop their strategies and plan actions. I think it's important to be aware. For example, they've researched when you do a 360 assessment. And if you do a 360 assessment and you don't do this kind of follow-up coaching, it most commonly has a negative impact. When 360s are followed with coaching, then it has a positive impact. It goes back to what we were saying. If we give them the report ahead of time, they tend to go downhill, right? We follow the path of least resistance, and people are hurting themselves. So being there with them, asking these questions to keep it proactive moving forward, truly supports them in a really good way. Some of the different assessments that are available, and there's so many more than these. These are to give you some examples of the basic ones that are on your coach login page. The DISC. The DISC is going to identify personal behaviors, the way people communicate. We talk about personality assessments. It is and it isn't a personality assessment. It's more of a behavioral and interactive action type assessment. There's one on motivators, the reasons people do what they do. The emotional intelligence assessment. I love this one. I think it can be really helpful for people who truly want to grow and develop themselves. And in addition to the emotional intelligence assessment, there's actually an emotional intelligence 360, which means they have the added value of feedback from people around them. The Hartman value profile. And what that's going to do is measure their problem solving, their skills for that, and their ability to avoid blind spots. That's the situational bias that comes up. And then there's one on learning styles. You probably remember learning about different learning styles in class. This can truly pinpoint, because we all use all the learning styles, different ones at different times, truly pinpoint what's best for them. Sometimes people are unaware of that. And so that can be helpful. Those are a few. There's leadership assessments. I like the Leadership 360 as well. There's assessment tools there for you on workplace skills. There's one for people who do sales. There's a broad range of different assessment tools. So definitely worth exploring and checking them out. I love the reality that you can actually see sample reports before you buy one, so that you can look at, okay, what's it going to cover? What's in that? It's, to me, a nice benefit. What are the reasons we use assessments in coaching? So obviously we've got the common reason that sometimes the employer wants that. They see that as part of it. Let's go into in terms of serving the client. It gives knowledge. There's insight and awareness that comes out of that assessment tool for us. It becomes a resource in terms of, hey, what do I want to pay attention to? For you, when you do get certified in assessments, the certifications are continuing ed for you as a coach. Above and beyond that, some of you may not realize this. If you've never done an assessment certification, there are a lot of times where just having that assessment certification gives you an opportunity to be in additional places as available to coach people. So that can be helpful to you. The credibility of having that assessment certification, the additional opportunity it can create for you. So these are reasons people do an assessment. The obvious cons are time and money. It takes time to get certified. It takes money to get certified. I will say on the dashboard that we give you, if those are assessments you're interested in getting certified in, you do have a discount on the certification for that. So access it through the dashboard. If you just go straight to the website, they're not going to know you're a graduate and have the dashboard, and you won't get the same discount. So it does come with a discount for assessment certification if you decide to go that route. And again, it's a choice. Pros and cons on that. All right. If you decide to do assessment certification, if you say, okay, yes, I'm going to invest the time and money in this, it's something that clients want or organizations want. They want me using validated instruments. We sometimes call it evidence-based coaching because the coaching is based on that tool. It's a matter of deciding which one you want to do, accessing that certification wholesale. And the process, by the way, is self-paced. So there's a learning management system for it, and you go through that, and then you schedule time with people at Assessments 24/7 for it. All right. What we probably want to do more with in terms of time, debriefing an assessment. When you are certified in an assessment, you're going to review the report ahead of time. You're going to do some work on analyzing what's in there based on the training. When you get certification, you're going to write notes up, both for yourself and for what you want to talk about with the client. You'll be explaining the report and the results to your client, scheduling follow-up with them, and go from there. Now, let's have fun. This is where I want to get discussion groups going and let you have some conversations. So I've got a couple of different questions for you to talk about in smaller groups. The first one, I think this is challenging. How do you let clients know about the option of assessments? Because one of the things that happens is we say, okay, we're not going to automatically give all of our clients an assessment. I have seen coaches that every client they take on has to do a certain assessment, and that can be counterproductive. It can be, yeah, painful for the client. And then I've actually had clients say, you know, it was awful. I took this assessment and then we never did anything with it or whatever. Assessments are an option. And having the conversation with a client is really about, okay, it's available. Here's the pros, here's the cons, here's how to use it if you decide to do it. Let's talk about the different types of assessment and being clear on their reasons for it. So the challenge to all of you becomes, how do you let them know? Do you do it in an alignment meeting when you're just getting started? Is it something that's on your website? Is it something that you bring up if you notice it may be helpful based on how the coaching is going? There's a lot of different ways this can come into play. Have a conversation about that and figure out what you like for yourself. Then, how do you differentiate assessment debriefing from assessment coaching? I ran through quick examples for you. Put it into your own words. How are you going to explain that? And then deciding for yourself, when do you want to use assessments? Thoughts, comments, or questions before I move you into breakout rooms?
None for me so far.
Awesome. Everybody pretty good? So what I'm doing, I'm letting the Zoom genie decide who goes into what room. And so what that means is you'll get invited to go click and join. You probably saw, one message. Hopefully the people that are off camera and off mic will be able to join live in the breakout rooms, because what'll happen there is I'm going to obviously pause the recording while you go into your breakout rooms. That part of it will not be recorded. So hopefully it'll be comfortable for you there. I will also broadcast the questions to you. And if you want, what I'm going to do right now is copy these questions into the chat box so that when you go into your breakout sessions, you can have the questions that you're talking about. So I've put the 3 questions in chat box if you want to grab that. I do believe the chat box moves with you too. Everybody ready? All right, let me.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to pause the. All right, so welcome back, everyone. Very much want to hear what came out of the discussions in your breakout rooms. So the questions are up on the screen if that's helpful to you. And I'm going to ask all of you to just chime in with insights, what you learned, what came out of your conversation. You can use the questions if you want to, or you can go a different direction. That's up to you. So who wants to start this conversation?
Well, we had a great conversation. Specifically, we needed a little more clarification around the assessment debriefing versus assessment coaching, which Kathy, you kindly shared with us and helped us. But yeah, I mean, that was a big point for us to truly understand the difference and the value of having that certification with each one. Sounds like it would be very, very valuable, very helpful.
Yeah, if it's something clients want, of
Mhm.
course, right? Yeah. And you had a more of a conversation than that, so keep going, or David jump in and help her.
Well,
We-
I know what, go ahead, no, go ahead.
No, please, go for it.
Well, I know one thing that we really talked about, it was, quite a robust conversation in the sense of, I think you can make an assumption like, okay, I'm gonna do assessments. They make a lot of sense. We would all agree they make sense, but I think it's much more complicated than that on many fronts is, yeah, you could do it, but are you gonna be able to debrief it in the right way? Do you actually have the skill set to do it? You gotta make sure that you do. And there's the whole client side of it as well, is like, is it truly in the best interest of the client? And it really has to start with them versus more about you. So I find this to, when I signed up for this session, you've given me 4 or 5 other things to think about, which I guess is a good sign of the program, just thinking it through. But to me, there's a lot of nuance and complication of this. That's all healthy thought process, but it's not just as simple as assessments are good, let's go do a bunch of assessments. It's let's analyze each case in specifics and what is the value that the client's actually getting out of it. So I think that was a big part of what we talked about.
Nice. That's good. And Lisa, it had looked like you had something else to share too.
Well, and then we talked about, the benefits of having, when you're a coach for an organization versus a coach for an individual client, maybe the dynamic of assessments is different. Maybe, somebody who wants an assessment because they see the value, they want to grow, they want to identify their blind spots, may be more receptive and want that information, even if it's hard to hear, versus, an organization, the boss saying, everyone will take these assessments. I mean, that might come from a different place within you wanting that information on how to continue to grow. And so we talked a little bit about that as well, that differentiation.
Nice. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you both. All right. So Leonie, Cecil, and James, come on in and share what came out of your conversation.
Oh yeah, just as what I've said, that since of what I understand about doing assessment, I decided that when I'm going to start my practice, I would do this in the introduction part, like when you're doing the agreements first before anything else, like before you start the coaching, you explain to them that, okay, there are optional assessment that are available. If you're into assessment, then these are the pros and the cons. And if you're not, then I'm not going to move into further explanation about it. And then another thing, that if they are into assessment, you have to also explain with regards, that is included in the agreement, that you are not there to explain and debrief the assessment, because you are not certified, and you're not the assessor, you're the coach. So I would make sure that it would be really clear, and that's kind of thing that we talk about, and that's what I also understand.
Awesome. Thank you. And what do you want to add?
I think that's it.
Well, let's get the others from your group to jump in.
So I think Leonie got it right on. We agreed certainly on questions 1 and 2, which are essentially the same question. How do you let clients know about the option of assessments, and when will you use assessments? You use them when you let the client know, and the client says, hey, I'm interested. So we all agreed we would let the client know in that first meeting with the client about assessments, and we would explain the process if they want to use it. And the process certainly includes, coaching you based on the results of those assessments. But by the way, we are not, I certainly would not be certified to debrief you around that. So this is not going to be a deep discussion around what is in your assessment, but certainly we are going to use things from the assessment to be helpful to us. And you, client, will discuss that with me. You know, what do you see in the assessment? What are your comments? How do you feel about what you see there? For me, I thought coming into this session here that I would want all of my clients to get an assessment, and anything I want from my clients really is not for my benefit. I mean, at the end of the day, it really is about the client. So if I'm wanting to get it, it is about helping me to serve the client better. And so, but I do understand, based on the discussion we have had, it probably will be better for those clients who say they don't want this assessment, for me to then be more thoughtful about that first meeting and the kinds of questions I ask them, and really trying to do an assessment on my own, just by talking with the client, to see ways in which I might be able to frame my questions as a coach going forward with them. So in my coaching sessions with them, if I've understood some things about the client that an assessment might provide me, but then if I don't have the assessment, I've talked to the client about that in the beginning, and I better understand them now because I've asked some questions of them, and that will help me to frame my support for them going forward a little better.
Awesome, thank you. What do you want to add, James?
I just want to say my two partners crushed it. Building on the point that was made, it's around the whole competency of getting to know your client and how it can support that was one of the things that really struck me on how to think about this.
Yeah. Nice. We talked about the understanding your client class from the CPC, where it's, okay, is my client logic or emotion, passive or aggressive, and adjusting based on that. We talked about recognizing learning styles and adjusting based on that. And then we talked about the opening session surveying to get to know the client, as well as supporting them in terms of their own goals and priorities. So it's, our whole approach is very much about, yes, we are expected to understand them, their context, culture, et cetera, and adjust accordingly. And how do we do that? So assessments can be a tool if they're interested in it, and the process you've got gets you there too. So excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. Few things for you. Of course, you're all familiar with the Center for Coaching certification as a resource for you, and then also Coach 123. If you are continuing your coaching journey and you want questions answered on additional training, what does it take to get to a credential level or that kind of thing, please feel free to reach out on that. This is the coaching firm we have where we're placing graduates into opportunities with organizations. So we do contract with companies to provide coaching services. And when we have clients that way, we're giving them coaches that graduated from the Center for Coaching certification. If you haven't registered with us yet and you want to register, the information's on your coach login page. You're welcome to reach out as well. We know we have a couple more coming up where we're going to be looking for a bunch of coaches. So definitely an opportunity for you. Of course, hopefully you're taking advantage of all the different resources in terms of information. I will give you a heads up on Coaching Perspectives 11, the next book. I'm a couple chapters short. So the book is mostly ready, and we're looking for a few coaches that want to get published and write a chapter to add to Coaching Perspectives 11. So if you want to think about that, have a conversation, let me know. There's also information on that on your coach login page. If you are interested in having a call or sending an email, you've got questions you want to ask, or if you want to have a conversation about, okay, how do we do this with a coaching program in an organization, or hey, how can I take advantage of some of these other opportunities? Let me know. We're there for you on that. And yes, we are available in terms of outsourcing for organizations, supporting coaching programs, training of coaches, of course, and then actually providing the coaches. In terms of you, what's next for you? If you say, okay, I gotta find out what's next for me on my journey as a coach, or hey, I want to talk about a coaching program and organization, that kind of thing, let me know. We can set up something to schedule a conversation. And then in the meantime, as a result of today's conversation, be thinking about for yourself what you're going to do with it. Reflect on the insights from today, plan how you're going to use those insights, decide whether or not you want to coach for that, and of course, develop your network with coaches. Was there a question there?
I actually, I guess I'm full of questions. I do actually have a quick one. On the coaching placement, is that typically independent contractor work, or are there actually full-time jobs that potentially replace that?
It's all independent contractor.
Got it.
So the way it works, we have a number of organizations that we have contracts with, and then when they have somebody that gets a coach, they'll say, okay, we've got, for example, next month, we're anticipating 16 people who will get a coach. The way we do it, and then I have other places where it's like one at a time kind of thing. When they say, okay, we've got somebody who gets a coach, we will find out what they're looking for, what their criteria are. To give you an example, of somebody's like a CPC level, they're going on to their CMC, member of ICF, they don't have a credential yet, we will place them in opportunities that are with these organizations, and they appreciate this. When they have people that are more entry level and there's a lower budget for it, somebody who's not yet credentialed, they'll say, okay, yes, we can do that. And then when they have the next level, somebody's got an ACC credential, the price point's higher. The PCC level, that tends to be more your senior leaders and executives and that kind of thing. And the price point's higher for that too. So what they do is they say, okay, this is my budget. This is what this individual is going to be focused on working on. Any special requests in terms of the coach. Sometimes they will ask for a coach that looks like them, specific gender, those kinds of things. It depends on what the client wants. We take those requests. We identify 3 possible coaches for them. We send them bios on those 3 coaches, and they can look at the bios, they can call the coaches, they can email the coaches. We encourage them to have a chemistry meeting, if you will. Hey, are we going to connect? Is this a good match? That kind of thing. And then the client chooses which of those coaches they want to work with, and it moves forward from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the question. Oh, yeah, now I have a slide for questions and answers. My timing was impeccable on that. I will let you know. So I'm happy to hang around if you have additional questions. I recognize we used our time. So I want to thank you for being here, for participating in the conversation. If there's something else we can do to be helpful and support you, do let us know. And as I said, if somebody wants to hang around and ask additional questions, I'm happy to do that. So thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. It was great.
Thanks.